The poignant aroma of wet moss hit Link's nose as he passed through the ancient doorframe. A corridor lay before him, with a faded blue carpet running down the center. It was not long, as it led to a smaller door leading into a main chamber. This chamber took an octagonal shape, with a walkway elevated around the perimeter, leaving the center of the room sunken down a couple feet. The blue carpet continued around this rim, and down to the center of the room at 4 staircases. They converged at some sort of canopied altar, which was illuminated by 4 torches. On this altar, in the light of the torches, was the unconscious body of a girl with green hair. Saria! Link hightailed down the steps to the inner sanctum, where Saria lay, appearing to be unconscious. The flames illuminating her innocent face suddenly changed colors, one to a jade green, one to indigo blue, one to sunset red, and the last to amethyst purple. Catching Link off guard, it made him halt. The flames then moved from their places in the torch baskets, seeming to come alive. At that same moment, the altar began to sink down into a pit in the floor. Link refocused and rushed over to her, but not before another interruption. The flames had floated over to Link by this point, blocking him from the pedestal, which had fully submerged itself into the floor. "No, Saria!" The flames surrounded Link. He unsheathed the Master Sword. With a flicker and a spark, they all changed form to some kind of ghost-like being. These spectral creatures possessed bony silhouetted arms with deformed claw-like hands. Each of them carried a wrought iron lantern, lit with the colored flame from which it materialized. Their shrunken bodies wore ragged cloaks that matched the color of flame they took. These cloaks had hoods that shrouded their faces, keeping everything in shadow, save for 2 piercing orange eyes. "Pose," Navi informed. "They are vengeful spirits who wander the earth after death. The flames represent their restless souls." They circled Link, but did nothing more. They separated into 4 directions, to the edges of the room. Link turned around at all of them as they disappeared into the wall. It was now dark, with the only light coming from the open front door. The floor was flat where the altar once was, its canopy flush with the carpet around it. Link crouched and tried to dig his fingers into the creases, but with no prevail. "The flames!" Navi exclaimed. "It might come back up if you get all the Poes back to their torches." Link jumped up and recalled the direction the red one took. He was sure it went off to the left. Fumbling in the darkness, he found a door with faded stained glass. It led to a corridor lit by candelabras along the walls. All of a sudden, this place did not feel abandoned. Link hastily proceeded down the blue carpet that ran down the center. But as he did, something eerie happened. Before his very eyes, the corridor started to twist. With each step, his body turned more and more with respect to the end of the tunnel, which was retreating further and further away as well. Panicking, he started sprinting, down the endless spiraling path, filled with fear and despair. "Link!" Navi shouted. "This twisting corridor is an illusion created by the spirits that haunt this place." Link stopped. This place had been putting him on edge since he arrived. The vengeful Poe spirits were out there, surely mocking him. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, gathering his composure. After all, he would need it if he was going to get to Saria. When Link opened his eyes, the corridor was back to normal, and was no longer than 30 feet after all. He walked on through, no longer rattled, but determined. After the corridor, there was a corner turning to the right. A long dark staircase led Link up to another stained glass door. This time, it led outside, to a walkway overlooking a moonlit courtyard, surrounded by tall ivy-covered ramparts. Dead leaves swirled around the courtyard, almost in a mystical way that gave Link shivers. Looking down on it, he could tell this area was used for combat training, even if it was once a tranquil place of meditation for the original temple. A leftover weapons rack sat, rotting in the center, with rusty old halberds and long swords still resting on it. Standing out, however, was a gilded bow, golden and encrusted with jewels, still magnificently glimmering in the moonlight with no signs of decay. Link kept on, down the walkway and into another door, which led to another staircase. The carpeted stairs were lit by a dusty ray of moonlight from a small window. They led down to a landing. At the bottom of this landing was a painting, and the subject, posing against a dark background, was none other than the red Poe, glaring at him with its hollow, glowing eyes. Link ran down the stairs to it, only to find a painting of darkness. The Poe had left the portrait, teasing Link with a sinister chuckle. Link shuffled back up the stairs. He turned around and, sure enough, it was back in frame. Link sprinted down the stairs with sword in hand to try and nab it as quickly as he could. But again, it vanished. He couldn't get close to it. He went back up to get it back in view. He then dug in his knapsack for something bestowed to him in these parts a long time ago. Frustrated, he hurled his old Kokiri sword at the painting like a throwing dagger. The Poe faded away before it reached. "You're going to need something faster than that," Navi pointed out. That gave Link the perfect idea. He traveled down to the landing to grab the small blade, then proceeded down the second staircase and out a door, to the bottom level of the courtyard. He was after the gilded bow. But there was something off about this courtyard. The swirling wind sent chills down Link's spine again. This place was truly haunting him. Rising before him were two towering Stalfos, clad with tall shields and broadswords. "These Stalfos are a bit tougher than the ones in the Castletown market, Link," Navi told him. "Clearly," Link remarked as he went to work, with the Master Sword in his left hand and his Hylian shield in his right. He fended off the impending swings of the Stalfos' blades, while slashing their ribs the rare times they let their large shields down. It was indeed difficult, especially with the jump attacks they threw in, but Link bested them both, their bones disintegrating to magical ash in the swirling wind. Tired and out of breath, he put away his equipment and walked up to the glimmering bow. The gilded gold of its surface curved around pointed accents, which were delicately crafted at the handle and string attachments. The string appeared to be made of silk, stretched nice and taut at a length of about 4 feet. There was a complementing quiver that was also gilded in gold, and it held a good bundle of steel-tipped arrows. Link affixed the two to the knapsack on his back, joining them with the Master Sword sheath and the Hylian shield. Link had never done anything like archery, but neither had he done any sword fighting or horseback riding. He made his way back to the top of the stairs, where the red Poe was visible in the enchanted portrait. This Poe wore a conical straw hat and proudly held up its lantern, which was lit with a still red flame. Link took an arrow from his new quiver, put it in place adjacent to the handle, and pulled back on the bowstring. Releasing it was exhilarating, as it zoomed down the stairs and right into the Poe's lantern. The Poe let out an excruciating shriek, and then materialized out of the painting as the red flame, spilling onto the floor like a viscous fluid. Link approached it, readying his blade at his side, even if he was not quite sure whether the blade would do anything to it. "I yield, young swordsman," said a female voice, halting his movement. The red flame was addressing him. Link still had an anxious drive to his motives. "Where's the girl?" he demanded. "My name is Joelle." "What is the green-haired girl?" Link interrupted. "Where did she go?" "You care so much for her," Joelle said with curiosity. "She was like a sister to me," Link retorted. That was always the view he held of Saria. Their bond could have been that of a pair of twins. Even at this point in time, under the circumstances, she was like a little sister who needed help from her older brother. There was a pause from Joelle the Poe. Her soul flame hovered a foot over the floor. "Find my sisters, young swordsman," she finally said. "They will be able to help you." The flame took off, flowing down the stairs. "Hey!" Link called, following behind. The soul of Joelle phased right through the stone wall next to the door at the bottom. Link opened the door and crossed into the moonlit courtyard. Joelle was heading across the yard towards a large octagonal rotunda. "Where are you? Link! That tower! She's heading towards the main room," Navi pointed out. Link took a deep breath. Joelle was agreeing to help him. She must have been going to the torch where her soul flame was burning. With that, he continued into a door in the other corner of the courtyard. It was a mirror image of the staircase where he dismantled Joelle, with this time the blue Poe lurking in painting form, wearing a bonnet instead of a straw hat. This time, there were multiple portraits, one at the bottom of the stairs, one at the top, and one at the landing. This Poe made it more difficult to be captured, as it jumped from painting to painting to avoid the arrow Link shot. Frustrated, Link dipped an arrow into the wax of one of the candelabras lighting the staircase, and shot the flaming arrow at the top painting, burning it to a pile of ash. Then he did the same for the bottom one. Now the Poe was cornered like Joelle was. Link aimed for the wrought iron lantern again, spilling the blue flame onto the floor. "All right!" cried another female voice. "I've already captured your sister Joelle." "My sister Joelle was always a pushover. What do you want?" "The green-haired girl. If all of you return to your torches, I can get to her. Am I right?" "You're not wrong," the Poe responded with a pause. The name is Beth. Link gave his own pause. Did you live here with your sisters? There was yet another pause. 2 of us remain, young swordsman. With that, Beth drifted off, back towards the main room. Beyond the staircase was a hall, another corridor with blue carpet down the middle. This proved to be another haunted corridor, as the ceiling would come crashing down again and again, forcing Link to hit the floor and lay flat. The corridor led to a chamber with dilapidated furniture. There was a desk in one corner, a bookshelf in another, and a canopied bed along the other wall, with an empty chest at the foot of it. This appeared to be the master's quarters. Prominently displayed on one of the walls was a large painting of none other than the Green Poe, wearing a Phrygian hat, much like Link's. When the arrow hit the lantern and the green flame spilled out of the painting, this time the Poe rematerialized. Link was actually caught off guard when she spun her lantern round and round, charging Link head-on. This one was putting up a fight. Link dodged and readied his shield for another charge. There was a clank of the wrought iron as he deflected the blow from the lantern. With nothing for her to do, Link sliced into the Green Poe, causing an ear-splitting screech, turning her back into a green flame. "I surrender!" she yelled. "Very well," Link said as he sheathed his sword. "Just because my sisters give themselves up doesn't mean I'll do so without a fight. I'm sorry, but that girl is only a child." Her soul flame hovered there in a long pause. "Your heart is as pure as hers. I'm Amy." "Hello," Link replied politely. "Meg will probably not be as forgiving as me. She is not like the rest of us." "What do you mean by that?" She gave another pause. "You'll find her in the main chamber, right through this door." Amy hovered over to a door on a step up from the rest of the room. Link followed her through the door, to a porch that overlooked the main chamber from the right side of the room. Link had traveled a whole loop around the temple. He looked at the 4 torches in the center of the room. He saw the colors red, blue, and now green, lit in 3 of the 4. At the place the altar had sunk, a figure draped in a purple hood floated there, huddled over and quivering. Link descended some stairs down to the rim of the chamber, and then approached the inner sanctum. "Meg," Link inquired. Meg turned around, her eyes glowing a fierce, fiery orange. She shook with violent anger. With her lantern, she lashed out at Link. He swiftly bent backwards to avoid the blow. Meg twirled, but not to swing her lantern. With the blink of an eye, there were 4 of her, and they came to surround Link, slowly closing in on him. Link looked each one of them dead in their glaring eyes. With conviction, Link took his new bow, strung an arrow, and released when his mark was in his sights. He could tell which one was the real Meg, from the eyes that looked the saddest. The sad eyes turned to shock as the arrow shattered her lantern, and the purple flame spilled to the floor. "You win," Meg surrendered. Link remembered the sadness in her eyes. "I'm sorry, but you need to help me to get to Saria?" Meg interrupted. "Her name is Saria, isn't it? How did you—" "She came to this place every day for 7 years. She would sit on the tree stump outside and just stare at this place. Sometimes I thought she felt my presence, our presence." Link looked around at her sister's flames. Saria seemed to have a connection to this temple. With her being the sage, this would make sense, but Link couldn't help but wonder how much of that time was also spent missing him. Before he knew it, the purple flames had made its way to the final torch, and the altar started rising. Link anxiously waited for the surface to come up, but Saria was not on it. "Saria! No! Saria, where did she go?" He climbed onto where she lay, but just as he did, the altar started to descend again. Frozen, Link stayed, figuring this would take him to where she went. Down it went, further down a shaft, until it reached the bottom. Link disembarked at the platform. He was in a dank cellar, lit with torches along the walls. Without reproach, Link followed them. They led to another chamber, this time hexagonal, lit by a well of moonlight from a cupola at the top. Paintings in bronze frames adorned each of the 6 walls. In the center, a spiraling staircase led him up to a round platform in the middle, whose center was painted with the sigil of the Triforce, and whose edge was lined in red velvet rope draping between silver spades. In the middle of this platform, Saria lay there, limp and pale. "Saria!" Link's voice echoed in the tall underground chamber as he dove for her side. "My, how you've grown," A dreadfully familiar voice echoed from the dark corner. Link killed his movement. The familiar voice was sending chills down his spine. With a stammer, he managed to squeak out, "What did you do with her?" "Nothing, actually." The source of the voice began to move out of the corner. "You see, young lad, I knew you would come here." The green man was somehow hovering, no doubt using dark magic. He circled Link as he explained. "So I came here to wait for you, but so did this girl. When I arrived, the spirits of this place awoke, and, well, delivered her to me, as a sacrifice to the great Ganondorf." Link despairingly looked over his childhood friend. Her lifeless body lay peacefully sprawled on the floor in her green tunic. Sobbing, Link put his hand on her cheek. It wasn't all that cold. "I'm so sorry, Link," Navi consoled. "That was not just some child who wandered in here, though, was it?" Ganondorf said. Petrified, Link turned around as he continued. "I think they did me a huge favor." Link was still petrified. The fiend hovered around him in circles. "I wasn't expecting the Sage of Forest to be a little girl." Link violently unsheathed the Master Sword, producing a loud shing. "Geh, eh, eh," Ganondorf chuckled. "You want to get on with it, then? Very well." This time, Link dove out of the way of the curse he so dreaded as a child, but this time, it manifested as a glowing ball of energy, the magic unleashing a frightening black lightning that zigzagged all over the floor of the subterranean rotunda. Seemingly out of nowhere, Ganondorf summoned his black stallion, causing it to float alongside him. Immediately, he hopped on and rode it through the air, across the room into one of the paintings. "What sorcery is this?" Link said, amazed at the purple portal Ganondorf had conjured at the front of the portrait. The painting was a grim depiction of a towering manor, silhouetted in the moonlight of the horizon. In the foreground, amber dead grass and crooked dead trees lined a pathway leading to it. On this pathway, Ganondorf and his black steed were galloping towards the manor, growing smaller in size, the clopping of hooves growing fainter. Looking around at the other paintings, Link saw that they were all exactly the same. 6 of them surrounded him. In one of these, Ganondorf was galloping back, for the clopping was growing louder. Darting his head around, Link searched for the one he was in, but not before he heard a whooshing sound behind him. He whipped around to see the purple portal, but it was too late. The curse surged through his body and rattled his bones, seemingly worse than ever before. Groaning, he fought his way up, in bouts of extreme pain. "Link, use your bow," Navi suggested. In agreement, he equipped his bow, cocking an arrow in the bowstring. He listened carefully for the galloping. Darting from painting to painting, he surged, and this time picked him up. Ready to fire, he waited for the portal to appear, but Ganondorf dastardly twirled his horse around and shot away. Link especially did not expect the next blow, which hurled him across the floor next to Saria's body. He lay there in debilitating pain, but looked over at his lifelong friend, whose emerald eyes happened to be pointed right at his. A tear streaming down his face, he put all his effort into getting up, into fighting, into finishing this for Saria. With a cocked bow, he this time closed his eyes. Using only his hearing, he guided his bow to the portal, and consequently his arrow to his foe. A whinny of agony was let out as he opened his eyes. It must have been the black stallion, for it was dissolving away into a purple haze. Unfazed, Ganondorf hovered there, looking down on his challenger. It took all Link had to dodge out of the way of another curse. His stamina very low, he could barely stand back up, not knowing if he could take even one more hit of the dark magic. "I can't, Navi," he panted. "Link, the sword that seals the darkness," Navi exclaimed. "Use the Master Sword to deflect the dark magic." When the ball of energy came towards him, Link mustered the strength to swat it away with his sword. Working brilliantly, it redirected the ball right back at him, this time the curse torturing himself. Debilitated, Ganondorf fell to the floor, breathing heavily on one knee. Link wasted no time in slashing the Green Gerudo man back and forth, then finishing him with a direct stab. By now Link had shut his eyes. He felt how still the hilt of the sword was, but all of a sudden, the sword felt heavy, and fell down to the floor with a clang. With no more strength, he fell to his knees. He opened his eyes to see a limp Ganondorf become phantomic, phasing right away from the Master Sword with no wounds whatsoever. He hovered up and away from him. Link was confused until he heard a voice. "Hey kid, you actually did quite well," the voice of Ganondorf bellowed throughout the chamber. "But you only fought my phantom." "Phantom?" Link responded with barely a voice. "Yes," Ganondorf's voice said with vigor. "Now you know how I was in two places at once. When we fight for real, it won't be so easy." Easy? Link thought. If that was supposed to be easy. "What a worthless creation this was," Ganondorf's voice proclaimed. "I shall banish it between dimensions." With that, the evil spirit from beyond was deposited into a purple portal, back to the beyond. After that, it was quiet. Link was weak, and still grieving his childhood friend. He may have won the battle, but he was defeated. He felt himself slip away, his vision going white. But instead of passing out, he was waking up. In the bright white of his field of vision, a green-haired girl in a green tunic came forth. "Saria?" Link asked, a little dazed. "Your friend here has been awakened, thanks to you," Rauru said, walking into view and putting his hand on her shoulder. Link was in the Chamber of Sages once again. "Thank you," Saria spoke. "Because of you, I could awaken as a sage." "So you are the Sage of Forest," said Link. "I always believed that you would come, Link." Link remembered that there was now quite an age difference between them. "This may be a bit strange to you," he said. "You don't need to explain," she said. "It is destiny that you and I can't live in the same world." Link bowed his head, a little overwhelmed. Rauru cleared his throat. "Link, I hope you can understand." "I am here now, as the Sage of Forest, protecting the Forest Temple, and helping you." Link looked up. He had come to a sobering realization. To become a sage, you must die, leaving your physical body behind, your spirit transported to this place. He nodded, even if a little reluctantly, after which the white began to fade away. "It was great to see you once more, Link," Saria called from the fading glow. "I will always be your friend." Link's heart was heavy and full of emotion. As the white light faded totally away, so did he.